So here's something wild. James Cameron just spent $500 million to show us the exact same movie again. And somehow, nobody's talking about the one thing that should be making headlines. Not the visuals, not the runtime, something far more bizarre that happens in the third act that literally breaks the entire universe he spent 20 years building. But we'll get to that. First, let me tell you about the floating death traps.
Picture this. You're a merchant civilization on Pandora. Your entire economy depends on trade routes across a planet filled with predators, territorial tribes, and literal floating mountains. What do you choose as your primary mode of transportation? Massive airships made of tissue paper thin material held aloft by highly flammable hydrogen gas on a planet where rocks float naturally. Let that sink in for a moment. Cameron introduced unobtainium in the first film, a room temperature superconductor that creates anti-gravity effects so powerful that mountains the size of cities just hang in the air. The entire human invasion of Pandora is motivated by mining this miracle material. And yet, the Windtraders, this supposedly ancient, successful merchant clan, decided that the best engineering solution was to fill giant fabric balloons with explosive gas and hope for the best. Here's where it gets even more absurd. These airships are so fragile that a single puncture can bring them down. We're talking about material that wouldn't survive an angry house cat, let alone Pandora's ecosystem. And what's Pandora famous for? Aggressive megafauna, territorial banshees, swarms of creatures that attack anything that moves. The film even shows us that these caravans get regularly attacked by pirates. Pirates! Which means this has happened enough times that there's an entire economy built around robbing these flying tissue boxes.
How did this civilization survive its first trade route? Seriously, one flock of confused birds and your entire merchant fleet is a fireball. The Windtraders should have gone extinct within a generation, but Cameron wants us to believe they've been thriving for centuries using technology that makes the Hindenburg look like a triumph of safety engineering.
And speaking of questionable decisions, let's talk about the location. After Pandora's lush forests in the first film, Cameron took us underwater for the second one. Fair enough. New biome, new visual opportunities, fresh world building. So for the third film, after a 5-year wait and hundreds of millions in production costs, where does he take us? Back to the water. Again. Sure, there's the Ash Clan territory, but the bulk of the action? You guessed it. We're back with the Metcaina, back in the reef, back to the same bioluminescent ocean we just explored. It's like ordering a completely different meal at a restaurant and getting the same dish with a slightly different garnish. The creative bankruptcy is stunning. Pandora is supposed to be a moon the size of Earth with endless diverse biomes. We could have seen Arctic regions, volcanic wastelands, crystalline caves, sky islands with unique ecosystems, underground bioluminescent forests, acidic swamps. The possibilities are literally endless. Instead, more water. Again. It's the sequel equivalent of a band playing their hit single 3 times in a row and calling it a new album. But here's where things get truly weird, and this is the part that should be generating conspiracy theories across the internet. Spider, the human kid who's been running around Pandora without a breathing mask through sheer protagonist immunity. Throughout 2.5 films, we've watched this character somehow survive in an atmosphere that should kill him within minutes. It's been the elephant in the room that fans have been trying to rationalize with increasingly desperate theories about gradual adaptation and partial immunity. Then, in Avatar 3, Cameron finally addresses it. And his solution? Spider touches the Tree of Souls, has a spiritual moment with Iwa, and boom! He can suddenly breed Pandora's toxic atmosphere permanently. Just like that. Divine intervention. The goddess of the planet just fixes his lungs, or changes the atmosphere around him, or something. The film never really explains the mechanism. Stop and think about what this means for the entire franchise. Jake Sully spent the first film going through an incredibly expensive, scientifically complex process to transfer his consciousness into a genetically engineered Na'vi body. The entire human presence on Pandora requires masks, atmospheric processors, and sealed environments. We've watched characters suffocate within seconds of losing their masks. The RDA Corporation has spent trillions of dollars on this invasion specifically because humans can't breathe the air. And apparently, all you needed to do was hug a tree. That's it. The solution was there all along. Every human death from atmospheric exposure? Preventable. The entire Avatar program? Unnecessary. Just line everyone up at the Tree of Souls and let Iowa do her thing. Why didn't the Na'vi offer this to Grace Augustine? Why not save Netayam this way? Why let any human ally die when there's a literal god who can just rewrite biology with a touch? The implications are franchise-breaking. Either Iowa is incredibly selective about who deserves to breathe, which makes her kind of a monster, or Cameron just handed Spider a golden ticket because the plot needed it. It's the worst kind of deus ex machina, the kind that retroactively makes everything that came before feel pointless. And let's talk about the other elephant in the room, or rather the other reanimated Marine, Colonel Quaritch. In Avatar 2, we learn that the RDA managed to create a Na'vi avatar implanted with Quaritch's memories, extracted from his brain before death. Okay, sure, science fiction hand-waving, we'll accept it. But here's the thing nobody's asking. How is he actually piloting that body? The original Avatar program required a psychic link between human and avatar, established through genetic matching and neural interfacing. Jake could control his avatar because it was literally grown from his DNA mixed with Na'vi DNA. The connection was biological, specific, and required the human consciousness to actively drive the avatar body. When Jake went to sleep, his avatar went dormant. But Quaritch's human body is dead, gone. So what's controlling the avatar? Is it actually Quaritch, or is it a Na'vi body running a simulation of Quaritch's personality based on memory implants? If it's truly him, where is his consciousness residing? In the avatar's brain? Then he's not the same Quaritch, he's a copy, a Na'vi with implanted human memories. If there's some kind of digital consciousness stored somewhere, where? How? The technology for that is never established in this universe. The more you think about it, the less sense it makes. And it gets worse when you consider that the RDA apparently has the technology to defeat death itself through memory transfer and consciousness uploading. But they're still fighting over unobtainium mining rights. With that kind of technology, they could revolutionize human civilization. Digital immortality would be worth infinitely more than any mineral resource. But Cameron doesn't want us thinking about these things. He wants us distracted by pretty colors and emotional family drama. Speaking of which, let's talk about the Ash Clan. The Ash people are introduced as this terrifying new threat. Na'vi who've rejected Iowa, become militaristic and cruel, and built their society around fire and destruction. Cool concept, right? Finally, some moral complexity in the Na'vi species. Not all tribes are peaceful tree huggers. Some have taken darker paths. This could have been fascinating world building. Instead, they're cartoon villains, led by Varang, who rides a creature called a night wraith, and is evil because the script says so. There's no exploration of why they rejected Iowa, no cultural context for their beliefs, no sympathetic motivation that makes us understand their perspective. They're just bad. They help Quaritch because they're bad. They attack the protagonists because they're bad. It's the most superficial antagonist setup in a franchise that already gave us the evil corporate military in the first film. And here's the thing that really stings. The Ash clan had potential. Imagine if they rejected Iwa because they witnessed the goddess's failures, saw good people die while she did nothing, watched their ecosystem collapse despite their reverence, experienced the capricious nature of a deity who saves some and abandons others. That would have been compelling. That would have made them ideological opponents with valid grievances. Instead, they're just another obstacle for the Sully family to overcome in their never-ending cycle of new place, new threat, same resolution. The formula is so tired at this point that you can predict every beat. Family arrives in new location, family struggles to adapt, family is threatened by antagonists, family fights back, someone almost dies to raise stakes, family triumphs through unity and connection to Iwa. Roll credits, setup sequel. 3 films, 3 times, the exact same narrative structure. You know what's really frustrating? Cameron used to be better than this. The Terminator revolutionized sci-fi action. Aliens took a horror franchise and transformed it into a war film masterpiece. The Abyss explored genuinely complex themes about communication and sacrifice. Even Titanic, for all its romance, was built on meticulous historical detail and innovative filmmaking. But Avatar 3? It feels like Cameron on autopilot. Like he's so confident in his visual spectacle that he's forgotten story matters, character development matters, internal logic matters. You can't just dazzle audiences with gorgeous underwater scenes and expect them not to notice that you're telling the same story for the 3rd time with increasingly nonsensical plot devices. The 3-hour, 15-minute runtime is almost insulting when you realize how little actually happens. Strip away the extended flying sequences, the slow-motion emotional beats, and the obligatory "look how pretty Pandora is" montages, and you've got maybe 90 minutes of actual plot. The rest is padding. Beautiful, expensive padding, but padding nonetheless. And the worst part? Cameron has already announced Avatar 4 and 5. We're locked into this. 2 more films following the Sully family through Pandora's greatest hits. Will Avatar 4 take us back to the forest? Will Avatar 5 discover a new biome and then immediately return to familiar territory? Will Iwa grant more magical powers whenever the plot requires it? Will we finally get an explanation for how consciousness transfer works, or will that remain conveniently vague? Here's what really gets me. The original Avatar, for all its faults, had something to say. It was a heavy-handed, unsubtle environmental parable, sure, but it committed to its message. It took a stance on imperialism, corporate greed, and ecological destruction. You might have rolled your eyes at the white savior narrative or the simplistic good versus evil framing, but at least it believed in something. Avatar 3 believes in nothing except its own franchise. It's a film designed by committee to tick boxes and set up future installments. Introduce new tribes? Check. Create new villains? Check. Raise stakes for the family? Check. Showcase new creatures and environments? Well, sort of check. We'll just recycle some water scenes and call it good. Leave threads dangling for the sequel? Triple check. The film treats its audience like we won't notice the contradictions, won't question the logic, won't care about coherent world building as long as the spectacle is impressive enough. And maybe Cameron's right. Maybe most viewers will walk out satisfied by the visuals alone. But that doesn't make it good filmmaking. That makes it expensive screensaver cinema. We're watching one of history's most successful directors coast on past glory while spending ungodly amounts of money to deliver diminishing returns. The original Avatar was groundbreaking in 2009. Avatar 2 was impressive but familiar in 2022. Avatar 3 in 2025 is just more. More runtime, more budget, more underwater scenes, more Sully family drama, more inexplicable plot conveniences. At what point do we admit that this emperor has no clothes? That underneath the stunning visuals and technical achievements, there's a hollow core where compelling storytelling should be? That Cameron is more interested in pushing technological boundaries than in crafting narratives that respect the intelligence of his audience? The saddest thing is that Pandora as a concept still has potential. A moon-sized world with diverse biomes, complex ecosystems, indigenous cultures with distinct beliefs and practices, the aftermath of human colonization, the moral complexities of consciousness transfer and identity. These are rich themes worth exploring, but not like this. Not with lazy writing, recycled plots, and magical solutions that break the universe's internal logic. So here's my message to James Cameron. It's time to step back. You've built something remarkable with Avatar. You've created a visual language that influenced a generation of filmmakers. You've proven that audiences will show up for ambitious sci-fi world building, but you've also shown us that you're out of ideas for this franchise. 3 films in, and we're treading water, sometimes literally. Take the win. Let new voices explore Pandora. Bring in writers who can develop the Na'vi cultures beyond surface-level aesthetics. Find directors who can tell stories that don't follow the exact same beat sheet. Use that massive Disney budget to take risks instead of playing it safe with formula.
Because right now, you're doing something worse than making bad films. You're making unnecessary ones. Films that exist solely to extract more revenue from a property rather than because there's a story that demands to be told. And that's not the legacy of the filmmaker who gave us Aliens and Terminator 2. That's the legacy of someone who stopped challenging himself.
We don't need Avatar 4. We don't need Avatar 5. We need Cameron to remember why he became a filmmaker in the first place. To tell stories that push boundaries, not to push audiences through the same narrative loop until they stop buying tickets. The question isn't whether Avatar 3 is bad. The question is, how many more times are we going to pay premium prices to watch the same film in increasingly elaborate disguises? I think we've reached our answer.